The massive doors of the Galactic Council chamber opened with a sound like thunder. Doyen Kim walked through them with his head held high, even though his heart was beating fast. Behind him, 3 other humans from Earth's delegation followed. They all wore their best formal clothes, but Doyen knew it didn't matter. Today, Earth would be sold piece by piece, and there was nothing they could do to stop it. The chamber was huge. It stretched up so high that Doyen couldn't see the ceiling through the artificial clouds that floated near the top. Thousands of aliens from hundreds of different species sat in curved rows that circled the center floor. Some had scales, some had fur, and some looked like they were made of living crystal. All of them were here for one reason: to buy parts of Earth. Doyen took his place at the small podium reserved for Earth's representatives. It was positioned lower than all the other seats, a deliberate insult. The message was clear. Humanity had lost, and losers didn't get respect. 3 months ago, human colonists had settled on a planet called New Vancouver. They didn't know that the Velkari Empire had claimed that sector of space 200 years earlier. When Velkari scouts found the human colony, they demanded the humans leave immediately. The colonists refused. They had followed all the proper procedures, filed all the right documents with the Galactic Council. The land was supposed to be unclaimed, but the Velkari had older maps, older claims. The Council reviewed the evidence and sided with the Velkari. As punishment for the illegal settlement, Earth was ordered to pay massive fines. When Earth's government said they couldn't pay, the Council declared that Earth's resources would be auctioned to cover the debt. Now Doyen stood in this chamber, watching alien empires prepare to carve up his homeworld. The auction master, a tall being that looked like a walking mantis made of blue metal, activated the holographic display. An image of Earth appeared in the center of the chamber, spinning slowly. Green continents, blue oceans, white clouds. It looked so peaceful from space. Lot number 1, the auction master announced in a voice that came from everywhere at once. Mining rights to the African continent. Rich in rare minerals, including platinum, diamonds, and uranium. Starting bid, 5 million galactic credits. The bidding started immediately. A reptilian species from the Kresh Coalition offered 6 million. A floating jellyfish creature countered with 7 million. Doyen watched, his fists clenched as the price climbed higher and higher. Finally, the Kresh won with a bid of 15 million credits. Lot number 2, agricultural zones in North America and Europe, suitable for growing Prodexy grain. Starting bid, 8 million credits. It went on and on. South America's rainforests went to a corporation that harvested exotic lumber. Australia's coastal waters went to an aquatic species that wanted to establish fish farms. Asia's manufacturing centers were sold to a hive-mind collective that needed factory space. Doyen tried to speak several times, tried to argue that this was wrong, that Earth was a sovereign world with billions of people who had rights. Each time, the auction master silenced him with a wave of one-bladed arm. Lot number 17. The auction master continued. Labor contracts for 10 million human workers. Terms, 20-year service agreements in mining, agriculture, and construction sectors. Starting bid, 2 million credits. This was too much. Doyen slammed his hand on the podium. You're selling people. This is slavery. The chamber fell silent. Thousands of alien eyes turned toward him. The auction master tilted its head. Not slavery. Contracted labor. Very different under galactic law. The only difference is the name, Doyen shot back. You're still taking human beings from their homes and forcing them to work for species they never agreed to serve. They agreed when Earth accepted membership in the Galactic Council, a voice said from the upper seats. It belonged to Counselor Breck, a shark-like creature from the Prodexy Confederation. All member worlds agree to abide by Council judgments. Earth broke the law. Earth must pay. Doyen looked up at the alien counselor. We made a mistake. One colony on one planet. Does that justify destroying our entire civilization? Yes, Breck said simply. The word hung in the air like a death sentence. Before Doyen could respond, the chamber's atmosphere changed. Every alien in the room suddenly became very still and very quiet. Even the auction master stopped moving. A new ship had arrived at the station. Doyen could see it on the secondary displays. Massive, dark, and covered in what looked like organic armor. It was shaped like a blade, and it drifted toward the docking bay with terrifying grace. The Velkari Empress, someone whispered. The whisper spread through the chamber like fire. Doyen had heard of Empress Talvara, of course. Everyone in the galaxy had. She ruled the Velkari Empire, one of the oldest and most powerful civilizations in known space. Her people were warriors and conquerors. They looked like giant insects that walked on 2 legs with 4 arms, black shells for skin, and eyes that glowed like red stars. The Velkari almost never attended council sessions. They considered such gatherings beneath them. So why was the Empress here? 10 minutes later, the side entrance opened. 8 Velkari warriors entered first, each one carrying weapons that hummed with deadly energy. Then came Empress Talvara herself. She was taller than Doyen had expected, at least 8 feet high. Her black exoskeleton gleamed under the chamber's lights. Her 4 arms moved with elegant precision, and her red eyes swept across the assembled species with obvious disdain. When she walked, her footsteps made no sound, which somehow made her more frightening. The Empress moved to a private viewing platform that had been prepared for her arrival. She sat on a throne made of dark metal and gestured for the auction to continue. The auction master seemed nervous now. Its voice was slightly higher when it spoke. Lot number 18. Urban development rights for Earth's major cities. Starting bid— Stop, Empress Talvara said. Her voice was not loud, but everyone heard it clearly. The auction master froze. Your Majesty? The Empress stood. She walked to the edge of her platform and looked down at the center floor where Doyen stood. Her red eyes fixed on him with an intensity that made his skin crawl. I have reviewed the proceedings, she said. I have seen Earth's resources divided. I have heard the debate about human labor contracts. She paused, and the silence in the chamber became absolute. I find this auction incomplete, Councillor Breck spoke up. Your Majesty, all proper procedures have been— Incomplete, the Empress repeated, cutting him off. There is one item that has not been offered. She pointed one clawed finger directly at Doyen. That human, she said. The one who speaks with fire in his voice. The one who defends his dying world even when defeat is certain. Her eyes never left Doyen's face. Under the ancient laws of conquest which this council claims to honor, I invoke my right as victor. I claim him as tribute. The chamber exploded with shocked voices. Aliens shouted in 100 different languages. The auction master tried to restore order but failed. Empress Talvara spoke over the chaos, her voice cutting through the noise like a blade. That human is mine, and the entire galaxy fell silent. The Velkari transport ship was nothing like the human vessels Doyen had traveled on before. Everything was too big, designed for creatures much larger than humans. The corridors were wide enough to drive a truck through, and the ceiling stretched up into shadows. The walls were made of something that looked like black glass but felt warm to the touch. When Doyen pressed his hand against it, he could feel a gentle vibration as if the ship itself was alive. 2 Velkari guards escorted him through the vessel. They hadn't spoken a single word since bringing him aboard. They didn't need to. The weapons they carried made their purpose clear enough. Doyen tried not to think about what those weapons could do to a human body. He had been given 10 minutes to say goodbye to the other members of Earth's delegation. His assistant, a young woman named Hana, had cried. His security officer, Minho, had gripped his hand and promised they would find a way to get him back. Doyen had nodded and lied, telling them everything would be fine, but he didn't believe it. Nobody refused the Velkari Empress. The galaxy's history was full of species that had tried. All of them were now either extinct or serving as slave labor in Velkari mining colonies. The guard stopped in front of a massive door. It opened without a sound, revealing a chamber that took Doyen's breath away. The room was circular and vast, with a domed ceiling that showed the stars outside. In the center was a pool of water that glowed with blue light. Strange plants with purple leaves grew around the edges. And standing near the pool with her back to the entrance was Empress Talvara. She was alone. No guards, no advisors, no servants. Just her. The guards pushed Doyen forward gently, then left, closing the door behind them. Doyen stood there, waiting. His diplomatic training told him to kneel, to show respect, to acknowledge her superior position. But something inside him refused. Earth had just been torn apart. His people were being sold like cattle. And this creature, this alien empress, had claimed him like he was a prize to be won. So he stood, straight-backed, defiant. Empress Talvara turned to face him. Up close, she was even more imposing. Her red eyes studied him with the intensity of a scientist examining an interesting specimen. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then, to Doyen's surprise, she laughed. It was a strange sound, like wind chimes mixed with clicking insect noises, but it was definitely a laugh. "You do not kneel," she observed. "Your people's world burns and yet you do not kneel. Should I?" Doyen asked. His voice was steadier than he expected. "Most do. Even proud warriors. Even mighty kings." She walked closer, her forearms moving in complex patterns that might have been gestures or might have been unconscious movements. "But you are not most. I'm just a diplomat," Doyen said. "Nothing special." Liar. The word was not angry, just factual. "I have watched you these past hours. I watched you fight for your world even when the fight was lost. I watched you shame a chamber full of predators with your words. I watched you make them remember for just a moment that they were acting without honor." She stopped a few feet away from him. "No, you are not just anything." Doyen met her alien gaze. "Then why am I here?" "What do you want from me?" "Want?" Talvara tilted her head in a gesture that was eerily bird-like. "I want to understand." "Understand what?" "Your species." She walked to the glowing pool and gestured for Doyen to follow. When he did, she continued. 3 months ago, Velkari scouts encountered your colony on the disputed world. They expected easy removal. Humans are weak, they thought. Humans have no claws, no armor, no natural weapons. They will flee. But we didn't, Doyen said quietly. "No, you did not." Talvara's eyes gleamed. "Your colonists built traps. They used the local terrain. They attacked at night when Velkari senses are weakest. In 2 weeks, they killed 17 of my warriors before being defeated." She looked at him with what might have been respect. 17. Against a force that has conquered 12 solar systems. How? Doyen thought about lying, about protecting whatever advantage humanity might have, but something told him honesty was the only thing that might keep him alive here. "Because we're afraid," he said. "We've always been afraid. For thousands of years, humans were prey animals on our own world. We got eaten by bigger, stronger, faster creatures. We survived not because we were powerful, but because we were clever and desperate. That fear never went away. It's in our bones. And when we're cornered, when we have no choice, that fear makes us dangerous." Talvara was silent for a long moment. Then she said, "Fascinating." She walked past him toward a section of the wall that suddenly became transparent, showing the view outside. They were passing a massive space station. Hundreds of ships from dozens of species were docked there. "I did not save your world," Talvara said. "I know you understand this. The auction will continue. Earth will be divided. Your people will serve other species." Doyen felt his stomach twist. "Then why claim me? Why bring me here?" "Because I stopped the worst of it." She turned to face him. The labor contracts were about to be expanded. Counselor Breck wanted to claim 100 million humans, not 10 million. He wanted to spread your people across the galaxy, break your civilization completely so you could never resist again. Her mandibles clicked together. "I prevented that. By claiming me?" "By claiming you," she confirmed. "Ancient conquest law is older than the Galactic Council. When I invoked it, the auction had to pause. I then negotiated privately with Breck. In exchange for my taking you, I agreed to support certain Predexi trade proposals. Breck accepted. The labor contracts remain at 10 million. Earth keeps its government, its culture, its heart." Doyen tried to process this. "You saved 90 million people by trading me for political favors?" "Yes." He didn't know whether to be grateful or angry. "And now what? I'm your prisoner?" "Prisoner?" Talvara seemed to consider the word. "No, I propose something different. I propose you serve as my advisor on human affairs. You will help me understand your species. In return, I will protect Earth from further exploitation. The Velkari Empire will become Earth's guardian. Guardian or owner?" Doyen asked bitterly. "Is there a difference?" Talvara's tone was genuinely curious. "Yes," Doyen said firmly. "A guardian protects without controlling. An owner controls without caring." Talvara was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "I will consider your words." Before Doyen could respond, an alarm sounded throughout the ship. A Velkari officer appeared on a holographic display. "Empress, we have a situation. A human has infiltrated our communication systems. She is demanding to speak with you." Talvara's eyes flashed dangerously. "A human here? On my flagship?" "No, Majesty. She is transmitting from the Nexus Prime Station. She claims to be from Earth's intelligence service. She says she has information you need to hear." Doyen felt a chill. He knew exactly who it was. Talvara looked at him. You know this person. Her name is Jiwan Park, Doyen said. She's one of our best intelligence officers. If she's risking exposure like this, it means she's found something important. Then we will listen. Talvara gestured, and Jiwan's face appeared on the holographic display. Jiwan looked exhausted. She had dark circles under her eyes and her hair was messy, but her voice was steady when she spoke. Empress Talvara, Ambassador Doyen, I apologize for the intrusion, but I've discovered something you both need to know. She took a breath. For the past 3 months, I've been investigating why the Velkari really came to our colony world. The official story is that we violated territorial claims, but I found evidence that suggests something else. Talvara's posture became very still. Continue. The Velkari Empire has been studying human military tactics, Jiwan said. Not just from the colony conflict, but from our entire history. Someone in your government has been accessing Earth's military databases, our war histories, our strategic theories. They've been analyzing how humans fight. She looked directly at Talvara. Why would you do that unless you saw us as either a threat or an asset? The Empress said nothing for several seconds. Then she smiled, which was terrifying on an insect face. Your species continues to surprise me, she said. Yes, Intelligence Officer Jiwan Park. We have been studying humans. Because in 800 years of Velkari expansion, we have never encountered a species that fights like yours. Never encountered a species that turns weakness into strength. She looked at Doyen. And we want to learn how. Doyen suddenly understood. The Velkari didn't see humans as prey. They saw humans as teachers. The question was, what did they want to learn? 4 weeks had passed since Doyen arrived on the Velkari flagship. 4 weeks of strange days that blended together in ways that made him lose track of time. The Velkari kept different hours than humans, with rest cycles that lasted only 4 hours at a time. Doyen had to adapt or collapse from exhaustion. Empress Talvara had given him quarters that were surprisingly comfortable once he figured out how everything worked. The bed was too large, but he pushed cushions together to make it work. The food synthesizer could create something close to Korean stew if he adjusted the settings correctly, and the viewport in his room showed an endless view of stars that helped him feel less trapped. But it was the tasks Talvara assigned him that truly confused Doyen. She didn't ask him about military strategies or weapons technology. She didn't interrogate him about Earth's defenses or political weaknesses. Instead, she asked him strange questions. Why do humans create art? What is the purpose of music? Why do humans form emotional bonds with creatures from other species like dogs and cats? What makes humans laugh? At first, Doyen thought these were tricks, ways to make him lower his guard before the real interrogation began. But as the days passed, he realized Talvara was genuinely curious. She would listen to his answers with complete focus, her forearms still, her red eyes never blinking. Sometimes she would ask follow-up questions that showed she was truly trying to understand, not just collect data. Today's assignment was perhaps the strangest yet. Talvara had invited him to attend a diplomatic dinner with ambassadors from 3 other species. Doyen's role was simply to observe and afterward explain human perspectives on what he witnessed. The dinner was held in a grand hall with tables made of crystal that changed colors. The food was elaborate, though most of it looked like things Doyen wouldn't want to eat even if he was starving. He sat next to Talvara's chief military commander, a Velkari warrior named Velrix who had cold, calculating eyes and barely acknowledged Doyen's existence. The ambassadors included a Kresh diplomat who looked like a velociraptor wearing clothes, a floating lumina who was basically a sentient cloud of light, and a Pradexi trader who kept staring at Doyen like he was evaluating livestock. The conversation was mostly political gossip and trade negotiations. Doyen paid attention but contributed nothing. He was furniture here, decoration meant to demonstrate the Empress's power. Look, I own a human, her presence seemed to say. But then something interesting happened. The Kresh ambassador mentioned a recent trade dispute between his people and a smaller species called the Brennics. The Brennics had apparently stolen Kresh technology and were now selling it to others. The Kresh wanted compensation. The Galactic Council had ruled in favor of the Brennics, claiming the technology was developed independently. Obviously a lie, the Kresh ambassador hissed. The Brennics are primitive. They could never create such advanced sensors on their own. Perhaps they are more clever than you assume, Talvara said quietly. The Kresh ambassador laughed, a sound like gravel being crushed. Clever? They are barely capable of spaceflight. No, they stole our work and the Council protects them because the Council fears us. Doyen couldn't help himself. Maybe they did develop it independently. Everyone at the table turned to look at him. He had spoken without permission, without being asked. This was a violation of protocol. Even Commander Velrix looked shocked, but Talvara's eyes gleamed with interest. Explain, human. Doyen knew he should stay quiet. This wasn't his business. But something about the Kresh ambassador's casual dismissal of an entire species bothered him deeply. On Earth, we have a history of smaller nations and groups creating innovations that larger, more powerful nations thought impossible, Doyen said. Sometimes it's because the smaller group has to be more creative to survive. Sometimes it's because they approach problems differently. Being primitive in one area doesn't mean being primitive in all areas. The Kresh ambassador's eyes narrowed. Are you calling us arrogant, human? I'm saying assumptions can be dangerous, Doyen replied, meeting the alien's gaze. Your people assumed humans couldn't resist Velkari scouts. We did. Maybe the Brennick surprised you the same way. There was a tense silence. Then surprisingly, the Prodexi trader laughed, a wet bubbling sound. The human makes a point. Perhaps we all underestimate those we consider weak. The lumina flickered in what might have been agreement. Interesting perspective. Unexpected from a species so new to galactic affairs. The dinner continued, but the atmosphere had changed. The other ambassadors started directing some of their comments toward Doyen, asking his opinion on minor matters. He answered carefully, aware that every word was being judged. When the dinner ended and the guests departed, Talvara dismissed everyone except Doyen. They walked together through the ship's corridors until they reached an observation deck. You took a risk tonight, Talvara said, speaking without permission, contradicting a Kresh ambassador. I apologize if I do not apologize. She turned to face him. You did exactly what I hoped you would do. You spoke truth even when it was uncomfortable, even when it was dangerous. Her mandibles clicked together and what Doyen had learned was a sign of satisfaction. This is why humans are valuable. You do not simply accept what power tells you to accept. Doyen frowned. Was this a test? Everything is a test, Talvara replied. But not the kind you think. I am not testing your loyalty or your obedience. I am testing whether you will remain yourself even here, even surrounded by predators who could destroy you with a thought. Before Doyen could respond, a communication alert chimed. Talvara activated a holographic display and Doyen's heart jumped. It was Minho, his second-in-command from Earth. Minho looked worried. His face was pale and he spoke quickly. Doyen, I finally managed to establish a secure channel. I don't know how long this will last, so listen carefully. Things on Earth are getting worse. The colony worlds think you've betrayed us. They think you're helping the Velkari consolidate control over humanity. Doyen felt his chest tighten. That's not what's happening. I know that. You know that. But they don't. A resistance movement is forming on New Perth Colony. They're led by someone named Hana Lee. She's young, angry, and she's convincing people that the only way to save humanity is to fight back against all alien control, including the Velkari. Minho paused. She's planning something, Doyen, something big, and I think a lot of people are going to die if she goes through with it. The transmission ended abruptly. Doyen stood there staring at the empty space where Minho's face had been. Talvara was quiet for a moment. Then she said, This Hana Lee, tell me about her. I don't know her, Doyen admitted, but I understand her. She's seeing her world destroyed and feeling powerless to stop it. Violence feels like the only option left. Will she succeed? Doyen thought about it. No, but she'll get a lot of people killed trying. Human rebellions don't usually win against superior force. They just make things worse, and then we must stop her. We? Doyen looked at the Empress in surprise. Why would you care about human rebels? Talvara's red eyes studied him intently. Because you care. And I have invested significant resources in keeping you alive and functional. If your people are destroying themselves, that investment is wasted. She turned away. But there is more. Something you should know. Something I have not told you. What? She walked to the viewport and looked out at the stars. When she spoke, her voice was quieter than usual. My people, the Velkari, have ruled through strength for 8 centuries. We conquer, we dominate, we control. It is our nature. It is what we are. She paused. But recently I have begun to question whether strength alone is enough. Doyen waited. He sensed this was important. We are powerful, Talvara continued, but we are not growing. Other species fear us, but they do not learn from us. They do not join us willingly. Our empire expands, but it does not evolve. She turned to face him. Then I encountered humans. Weak, fragile humans who should have been easy to destroy. But you weren't. You adapted. You survived. You found strength in places we never thought to look. What are you saying? Doyen asked. I am saying that when I claimed you, it was not just as a prize. It was not just to study human tactics. Her voice held something Doyen hadn't heard before. Uncertainty. It was because I wanted to understand how a weak species becomes strong, how prey becomes predator, how the powerless survive against impossible odds. She moved closer. I wanted to understand because the Velkari Empire is strong, but we are brittle. We break rather than bend, and I fear that one day something will come that even our strength cannot defeat. Doyen understood then. Talvara wasn't studying humans to conquer them more effectively. She was studying humans to save her own people from extinction. You're afraid? He said softly. Yes, she admitted. And fear, I am learning, is not always weakness. Sometimes it is wisdom. They stood together in silence, human and alien, both afraid of different things, both trying to protect their people in a galaxy that didn't care whether anyone survived. The attack came without warning. Doyen was in his quarters trying to sleep during the ship's rest cycle when the alarm started screaming. Red lights flashed throughout the room. He rolled out of bed, his heart pounding, and grabbed the communicator that Talvara had given him for emergencies. What's happening? He demanded. Commander Velrix's voice came through, sharp and angry. Predexi forces have attacked New Jeju colony, agricultural world. Population 40,000 humans. Doyen felt his blood turn cold. New Jeju was one of Earth's oldest colonies, established 30 years ago by families from Korea. It was peaceful, focused on farming and research. No weapons, no military presence, just people trying to live their lives. How bad? He asked, unknown. Communication was cut off 7 minutes ago. Velrix paused. The Empress requests your presence on the command deck immediately. Doyen dressed quickly and ran through the corridors. The Velkari crew members he passed were moving with urgent precision. This was serious. The command deck was massive, with holographic displays showing maps of nearby space and tactical readouts that Doyen couldn't fully understand. In the center stood Empress Talvara, all four arms moving as she coordinated with her officers. She saw Doyen enter and gestured him forward. The Predexi have made a mistake, she said. They believe that because I claimed you, I have gone soft on humans. They think I will not defend a minor agricultural colony. They are testing my resolve. Doyen looked at the tactical display. He could see New Jeju highlighted in red, surrounded by Predexi warships. What are you going to do? That depends on you, Talvara said. Doyen blinked in surprise. On me? Yes, you are human. You understand your people better than I ever could. If I respond with overwhelming force, I prove my strength, but I may accidentally destroy what I am trying to protect. If I respond too weakly, I encourage more attacks. She fixed her red eyes on him. How would humans defend their own? Doyen's mind raced. This was a test, but not of the kind he expected. Talvara was genuinely asking for his strategic input. She was willing to risk her military reputation on the advice of a human diplomat who had no formal combat training. He looked at the tactical display more carefully. The Predexi had 6 warships surrounding New Jeju. They were positioned to blockade the colony, not destroy it. That meant they wanted to capture it, probably to claim the agricultural infrastructure. They're not trying to kill everyone, Doyen said. They want the colony intact. That's their weakness. Explain, Commander Velrix said, his tone skeptical. Humans are good at asymmetric warfare. We fight dirty when we have to. Doyen pointed at the display. Instead of engaging their warships directly, which would damage the colony, target their supply lines. Cut off their fuel and ammunition. Make them choose between maintaining the blockade or retreating to resupply. Talvara's mandibles clicked thoughtfully. Continue. At the same time, drop a commando team on the colony itself. Small, fast surgical strike. Free any humans they've captured. Disable any Predexi ground forces. Then evacuate before their warships can respond. Doyen could see it playing out in his mind. The Predexi expect a frontal assault. Give them something they can't predict. There was silence on the command deck. Then Velrix spoke, his voice grudgingly impressed. It could work. It is not how we would normally fight, but it could work. Talvara turned to her crew. Implement the human strategy. I want teams ready to deploy in 10 minutes. Target their supply convoy first. When they are disorganized, strike the colony. The Velkari moved with incredible speed. Orders were shouted. Ships launched from the flagship's hangar bays. Doyen watched it all, hardly believing what was happening. The most powerful empire in the galaxy was using his plan to save a human colony. Yuna Han, one of the few other humans on the flagship, appeared beside Doyen. She was a xenobiologist, brought aboard to help study alien species. Her presence had been a comfort to Doyen these past weeks, a reminder that he wasn't completely alone. This is insane, Yuna whispered. She's really listening to you. I know, Doyen whispered back. I don't understand it either. Yuna had been studying the Velkari in her spare time, trying to understand their biology and psychology. She had shared some of her findings with Doyen, but most of it was technical and over his head. Now she pulled him aside while the command crew was focused on the tactical displays. I figured something out, she said quietly, about why Talvara is so interested in you specifically. What did you find? Velkari neurochemistry is weird. Really weird. Their brains don't produce endorphins like humans do. They don't feel pleasure from food or rest or social bonding. Yuna pulled up a datapad and showed him complex chemical diagrams. But they do produce a similar compound when they're problem-solving. When they're analyzing complex tactical situations or solving difficult puzzles, their brains light up like Christmas trees. Doyen tried to follow. So they get pleasure from thinking? Exactly. And here's the thing. Humans are really good at creating novel problems and solutions. We're unpredictable in ways that most species aren't. We adapt constantly, think laterally, come up with weird, creative solutions that shouldn't work but do. Yuna looked at him seriously. To Talvara, you're not just interesting. You're literally stimulating. Every time you surprise her with a new perspective or unexpected solution, her brain rewards her. She's becoming addicted to human thinking. Doyen felt a chill. That's disturbing, is it? Think about it. Most aliens see humans as weak, but Talvara sees us as valuable because we make her think in new ways. That's better than being valued for our muscles or our obedience. Before Doyen could respond, alerts sounded across the command deck. The Velkari strike force had reached the Prodexi supply convoy. The battle lasted less than an hour. The Velkari ships hit fast and disappeared before the Prodexi could organize a response. 3 supply vessels were destroyed, 2 more were disabled. The Prodexi warships around New Jeju immediately broke formation to protect their remaining supplies. That's when the commando team struck the colony. Doyen watched the operation unfold on the holographic display. Velkari commandos moved through New Jeju's settlement like shadows, fast and precise. They located the captured colonists being held in the town hall and freed them within minutes. Prodexi ground forces tried to respond but were overwhelmed by the speed and ferocity of the assault. Then Doyen saw something that made his heart skip. The Velkari commandos weren't just rescuing the humans. They were arming them, giving them weapons, teaching them basic combat tactics on the spot. Commander Velrix noticed Doyen's expression. A modification to your plan, he explained. If the Prodexi return, the humans will not be defenseless. They will fight like your ancestors fought on Earth. It was brilliant and terrifying. The Velkari weren't just protecting the colony. They were turning it into a fortress. The entire operation took 90 minutes. By the time the Prodexi warships could regroup, the Velkari forces had already evacuated with the wounded and left the colony defended by armed, trained and very angry human farmers. Counselor Breck's face appeared on the main display. His shark-like features twisted in rage. Empress Talvara, this is an act of war. You attacked Prodexi forces without provocation. Talvara's response was calm and cold. You attacked humans under my protection. That is provocation enough. Under your protection? You claimed one human, not all of them. I claimed Doyen Kim as tribute. But New Jeju colony grows crops that feed the Velkari fleet. An attack on my supply sources is an attack on my empire. She leaned forward. If you wish to dispute this, I am happy to settle the matter with further military action. Breck's image flickered. He was calculating, weighing options. Finally, he said, the Prodexi Confederation demands compensation for our destroyed vessels. File your complaint with the Galactic Council, Talvara said dismissively. I'm sure they will be very sympathetic to your illegal military action. She cut the transmission before he could respond. The command deck erupted in clicking, sounds that Doyen had learned was Velkari laughter. They had won. More importantly, they had humiliated the Pradexi without suffering any losses. Talvara turned to Doyen. Your strategy was effective, more effective than a traditional assault would have been. The colonists helped, Doyen said. They knew the terrain, knew how to hide, knew where the Pradexi would search first. That information saved lives. Yes, Talvara agreed. The human factor. You fight differently because you think differently, because you are used to being the weaker party in any conflict. She moved closer to him. The galaxy has noticed this. Word is spreading that the Velkari Empress consults with a human advisor, that she listens to his counsel. Some think I have grown weak. Others think I have discovered a new kind of strength. What do you think? Doyen asked. Talvara was quiet for a moment. Then she said, I think that strength without wisdom is just violence waiting to be defeated. And I think your species has survived this long because you learned that lesson millennia ago. Her red eyes gleamed. I am beginning to understand why the galaxy fears your potential. Later, in his quarters, Doyen received a message from New Jeju. It was from the colony's governor, an elderly woman named Sora Kang, who had been one of the original settlers. Ambassador Kim, she said, her voice shaking slightly. I don't know if you had anything to do with our 3 weeks after the New Jeju rescue. Earth's government formally invited Ambassador Doyen Kim to visit the home world. It was supposed to be a diplomatic triumph, a chance to show humanity that their representative was still fighting for them. But Doyen knew the truth. Half the human colonies wanted to thank him and the other half wanted him dead. The Velkari flagship entered Earth's orbit on a clear morning. Doyen stood at the viewport in his quarters, staring down at the blue and green world he hadn't seen in months. From space it looked peaceful, perfect. It was easy to forget that down there, millions of people were suffering under the terms of the auction, working in mines and farms they didn't own, serving species they'd never wanted to meet. Empress Talvara had agreed to let him visit Earth for 3 days. She would remain in orbit aboard her flagship with most of her forces. Only a small guard detail would accompany Doyen to the surface. It was a gesture of trust or possibly a test. With Talvara, it was often hard to tell the difference. The transport shuttle landed in Seoul, at the government complex that served as Earth's diplomatic center. Doyen stepped out into air that smelled like rain and exhaust and food from nearby restaurants. After months of recycled atmosphere on the Velkari ship, it was overwhelming. Taijun Song was waiting for him at the landing pad. Taijun was Doyen's oldest friend, someone he'd known since childhood. They'd gone to university together, studied diplomatic theory together, dreamed together about making Earth a respected voice in galactic politics. Now Taijun served as Earth's acting governor, the person responsible for implementing the council's demands. They embraced, and Doyen felt his friend shaking. I'm sorry, Taijun whispered. I'm so sorry for everything that's happened. It's not your fault, Doyen said, pulling back to look at his friend. Taijun looked exhausted. He'd aged 10 years in 3 months, isn't it? Taijun's laugh was bitter. I'm the one who has to tell people they've been selected for labor contracts. I'm the one who signs away Earth's resources to alien corporations. I'm the one who watches our world being picked apart piece by piece while telling everyone it could have been worse. They walked together through the government complex. Security was heavy. Armed guards at every corner, scanners at every door. Taijun explained that there had been 3 assassination attempts against Earth's leadership in the past month alone. The resistance movement was growing stronger and more desperate. The meeting with Earth's council was tense. 20 representatives from different regions and colonies sat around a table, all of them staring at Doyen with expressions ranging from hope to hatred. Doyen gave his report. He explained what he'd learned about the Velkari, about their interest in human tactics and thinking, about Empress Talvara's protection preventing worse outcomes. He described the rescue of New Jeju and the message it sent to other species. Humans under Velkari protection were not to be attacked lightly. Some representatives were grateful. Others were suspicious. You're asking us to trust the species that started all of this, one representative said. The Velkari claimed our colony world. That's what led to the auction. And now you want us to believe they're our protectors? I'm not asking you to trust them. Doyen replied carefully. I'm asking you to recognize that right now, their interest in humans is keeping us alive. Without Talvara's intervention, Earth would have been completely carved up. Billions of people would be in labor contracts, not millions. Millions is still too many, another representative said quietly. My daughter was selected. She's 19. She's going to spend the next 20 years mining on a Kresh asteroid. How do I tell her that this is better than the alternative? Doyen had no good answer for that. The meeting ended without resolution. Some representatives wanted to work with the Velkari. Others wanted to resist all alien control. Everyone was angry, frightened, and desperate. That night, Taejin took Doyen to a small restaurant in Seoul that they used to visit as students. The owner recognized them and gave them a private room in the back. They ate kimchi stew and drank soju and tried to pretend things were normal. There's something you need to know, Taejun said after his third drink. The resistance movement is planning something big, something that will happen while you're here on Earth. Doyen set down his cup. What kind of something? I don't have details. But their leader, this woman, Hana Lee, she's convinced that the only way to save humanity is to prove we can't be controlled. She wants to make a statement that will force the galaxy to take us seriously. A statement that involves violence, Doyen said. It wasn't a question, Taejin nodded. I think they're going to try to kill you. And possibly me. Maybe the entire Earth Council. They believe that our leadership has failed humanity, and only by removing us can they start fresh. Doyen felt cold despite the warm food. When? Tomorrow, during your speech at the Memorial Plaza. It's a public event. Thousands of people will be there. It's the perfect opportunity. Then we cancel it. We can't. If we cancel, it looks like we're afraid. It gives the resistance exactly what they want. Proof that Earth's government is weak. Taejin looked at his friend. You have to give the speech, but you have to be ready. The next morning, Doyen stood in front of the Memorial Plaza. The memorial had been built to honor the humans who died in the colonial conflicts, including those who died at New Vancouver fighting the Velkari. It was a wall of black stone with thousands of names carved into it. More names were being added every week. Thousands of people had gathered to hear Doyen speak. Some held signs supporting him. Others held signs calling him a traitor. Security forces were positioned throughout the crowd, but Doyen knew that wouldn't be enough if someone was determined. He began his speech. He talked about sacrifice and survival. He talked about the difficult choices facing humanity. He talked about hope, and then he saw her. She was young, probably no more than 25. She pushed through the crowd with focused determination. Her hand was in her jacket, clearly holding something. Security started moving toward her, but they were too far away. Doyen could have run, should have run. Instead, he did something that surprised everyone, including himself. He stopped his speech and spoke directly to her. You're Hana Lee, he said. His voice carried across the plaza, amplified by speakers. The woman froze. The crowd around her scattered, giving her space. I know why you're here, Doyen continued. I know what you want to do, and I know why. You think I've betrayed humanity. You think I'm a collaborator who's making things worse. He stepped down from the podium, moving closer to her. Maybe you're right. Maybe I have failed. Stop talking, Hana said. Her voice shook. You don't get to pretend you understand. Then help me understand, Doyen said. He was close enough now to see the weapon in her hand. It was a small plasma pistol, human-made, probably black market. Tell me what I should have done differently. Tell me how I could have saved more people. Hana's eyes were full of tears and rage. You should have fought. You should have died fighting rather than let them take you. You should have shown the galaxy that humans don't surrender. I did fight, Doyen said quietly. I'm still fighting, just not the way you want me to. You're working with the enemy. I'm working with the only power that's willing to protect us right now. Doyen spread his arms. If you think killing me will save humanity, then do it. But understand that the moment I die, Empress Talvara loses her connection to human thinking. She loses her reason to protect Earth. And the next species that attacks our colonies won't be stopped because there won't be anyone advocating for us. Hana's hand trembled. The weapon shook. Or, Doyen continued, you can tell me what you really want. Not revenge. Not violence. What do you actually want for humanity? Hana's control broke. She collapsed to her knees, sobbing. The weapon fell from her hand. Security forces rushed in and grabbed her, but Doyen held up his hand. Let her go, he said. Ambassador, she tried to kill you. One security officer protested. She tried to save her people the only way she knew how. That's not a crime. That's desperation. Doyen looked at Hana. But desperation doesn't have to mean destruction. He helped her to her feet. The crowd watched in silence. Come with me, Doyen said to Hana. Come meet the Empress. Let her hear your anger. Let her understand what humans feel when they're powerless. Maybe it won't change anything. But maybe it will change everything. Later that day, Hana Lee stood aboard the Velkari flagship facing Empress Talvara. She was terrified but defiant, exactly the way Doyen had been on his first day. Talvara studied the young human with interest. You wanted to kill my advisor? Yes, Hana said. Why? Because he's helping you control us. Because humanity needs to fight, not surrender. And fighting means death? Sometimes, Hana said. Sometimes death is better than slavery. Talvara was quiet for a long moment. Then she did something that shocked everyone in the room. She laughed. That same strange, clicking laugh that Doyen had heard before. You remind me of Doyen when I first brought him here. The same fire. The same refusal to accept defeat. She leaned forward. Tell me, Hana Lee, if you could save humanity without fighting, would you? There is no way to save humanity without fighting, Hana said. That is where The warnings came first from the outer colonies, from the edge of civilized space where sensor stations watched for dangers that most species preferred to ignore. Strange readings, ships disappearing without distress calls, entire settlements going silent overnight. At first, the Galactic Council dismissed the reports as pirate activity or equipment malfunctions. But then a scout ship managed to get a visual recording before it was destroyed. The footage showed something that made even the bravest warriors feel cold fear. The Zolnath swarm had returned. Doyen first heard about it during a routine briefing aboard the Velkari flagship. Commander Velrix brought the footage to Empress Talvara's war room, and Doyen was invited to observe. What he saw on the holographic display looked like a nightmare made real. The Zolnath weren't ships in any traditional sense. They were organisms, massive living creatures that moved through space like schools of fish. Each individual was the size of a transport vessel, with bony armor and bioluminescent patterns that pulsed with alien intelligence. But the terrifying part wasn't their appearance. It was their behavior. They moved as one, thousands of creatures acting with perfect coordination, responding to threats instantly, adapting their tactics in real time. They weren't just a fleet. They were a single distributed mind, a consciousness spread across countless bodies, and they consumed everything in their path. How long until they reach this sector? Talvara asked. 4 months at their current speed, Velrix replied. Maybe less if they accelerate. They're moving toward the core systems, including Earth and the Velkari homeworlds. The war room fell silent. Even the Velkari, who feared nothing, seemed disturbed by this news. The Zolnath haven't been seen in this part of the galaxy for 200 years, Doyen said. Why are they here now? No one knows, Velrix answered. They don't communicate. They don't negotiate. They simply arrive, consume, and move on. The last time they came through, they destroyed 16 civilizations before they finally moved beyond the galactic rim. Can they be stopped? Doyen asked. Stopped? Talvara's voice was grim. Slowed, perhaps. But stopping them requires resources and coordination that the galaxy has never managed. Every species will act to protect their own territory first. By the time anyone realizes that individual defense is useless, it will be too late. Over the next 3 weeks, the Galactic Council held emergency sessions to discuss the Zolnath threat. Doyen attended as Talvara's advisor, watching as the assembled species argued and bickered instead of planning a defense. The Kresh wanted to evacuate their core systems and let the outer colonies fend for themselves. The Prodexi argued for building a defensive line that would protect the major trade routes while abandoning less valuable territory. The Lumina suggested trying to communicate with the swarm, convinced that any intelligence could be reasoned with. Only the humans and the Velkari seemed to understand the reality. This was an extinction-level threat that required everyone to work together or everyone would die on the 23rd day after the first warning. Empress Talvara made a decision that would change the course of galactic history. She called Doyen to her private chambers and spoke to him directly. The Zolnath will reach Earth in 3 months, she said without preamble. They will consume your world, kill your billions of people, and move on to the next target. This is certain. Doyen felt his stomach twist. He'd known this was coming, but hearing it stated so clearly made it real. What are you going to do? That is what I must decide. Talvara walked to her viewport looking out at the stars. The Velkari homeworlds are in a different direction. If I pull my fleet back now, I can defend our core territory. We will survive while the outer systems fall. It is the logical choice, the safe choice. But you're not going to do that, Doyen said. He could hear it in her voice. No, she turned to face him. I have spent the past months learning from you, learning from your species. You have taught me that survival is not enough, that power without purpose is meaningless, that protecting only yourself is just slow death. Her red eyes gleamed. I have decided to commit the Velkari fleet to a defensive stand here, in the outer systems. We will protect the vulnerable species. We will protect Earth. Doyen felt something catch in his throat. Why? Your military advisors must be telling you this is suicide. They are. Commander Velrix has filed 3 formal protests. My own council thinks I have gone insane. She moved closer to him. But I understand something they do not. If I abandon Earth now, I prove that everything you taught me was meaningless. I prove that the Velkari are nothing more than predators who protect only themselves. I prove that we have learned nothing. And if you stay, if you fight, then perhaps we die. But we die proving that strength can be used to protect, not just to conquer. We die showing the galaxy what is possible when species work together instead of alone. She paused. Or perhaps we survive. Perhaps human ingenuity combined with Velkari power creates something the Zolnath cannot defeat. Doyen thought about the weight of what she was saying. Talvara was risking her entire empire. Billions of Velkari lives on the belief that protecting humanity was worth the cost. I need to return to Earth, Doyen said. If we're going to fight, I need to convince my people to help. We have ideas, tactics, technologies that might make a difference, but they won't share them unless they believe we're all in this together. Go, Talvara said. Convince them, and return quickly. We do not have much time. Doyen took a transport to Earth that same day. When he arrived, he went straight to the government complex and demanded an emergency session with Earth's council. Tejan helped him arrange it, though many representatives were reluctant to meet. When they were assembled, Doyen didn't waste time on diplomacy or careful language. He told them the truth. The Zolnath swarm is coming. In 3 months, they'll be here. They will kill everyone on Earth unless we stop them. And we can't stop them alone. The representatives erupted in questions and panic. Doyen let them shout for a minute, then held up his hand for silence. Empress Talvara is committing her entire fleet to defend this sector. She's risking the Velkari homeworlds to protect Earth and the other vulnerable colonies. She doesn't have to do this. She could retreat and save her own people. But she's choosing to stay. Why? One representative demanded. What does she gain? Nothing, Doyen said, except the chance to prove that protecting others is more important than protecting yourself. She learned that from us, from humans, from our history of fighting even when we knew we'd lose. He pulled up holographic displays showing the Zolnath approach vectors and defensive scenarios. We have technologies that other species don't. Adaptive AI systems, asymmetric warfare tactics, psychological warfare techniques. Things that might work against a hive mind precisely because they're designed to fight stronger opponents. Sora Kang, the elderly governor from New Jeju Colony, spoke up. You're asking us to share our military secrets with aliens, to trust them. I'm asking you to survive, Doyen said, and the only way we survive is together. The debate lasted hours. Some representatives wanted to help. Others wanted to hoard Earth's resources and technologies for themselves. A few even suggested evacuating Earth entirely and abandoning the planet to its fate. Finally, Tejan stood up. We've spent the last 3 months arguing about what the Velkari took from us, about how they started this whole mess by claiming our colony. And maybe that's fair. Maybe we have every right to hate them. He looked around the room. But right now, they're the only ones willing to die protecting us. That has to mean something. The vote was close, but humanity agreed to join the defense. Earth's engineers, tacticians, and scientists would work with Velkari forces to prepare for the swarm's arrival. Over the next weeks, an unprecedented alliance formed. Humans taught Velkari warriors about guerrilla tactics and adaptive strategies. Velkari shared their advanced weapons technology and power sources with human engineers. Other species, seeing this cooperation, began to contribute as well. The Lumina provided sensor networks. The Kresh offered heavy artillery. Even the Predexi grudgingly sent support ships. A young human engineer named Sora Kang, no relation to the governor, made a breakthrough discovery. She was studying Velkari communication systems when she noticed something interesting. The Velkari used frequency patterns that were similar to what the Zolnath swarm used to coordinate their hive mind. What if we could disrupt their communication? She proposed during a strategy meeting. Create interference that breaks up their coordination. They're only dangerous because they move as one. If we can make them act as individuals, they become vulnerable. Commander Velrix was skeptical. The Zolnath have been using their hive communication for millions of years. It has never been disrupted. That's because no one has tried to disrupt it with Velkari technology modified by human thinking, Sora countered. Your frequencies are close enough to theirs that we might be able to create dissonance. It won't stop them, but it might slow them down enough for us to fight back. They had 6 weeks to build the weapon before the swarm arrived. It wasn't enough time, but humans were used to not having enough time. They worked around the clock. The first wave of the Zolnath swarm hit the defensive line like a tsunami hitting a beach. Thousands of organic ships, each one pulsing with bioluminescent patterns, moved with perfect coordination. They didn't fire traditional weapons. Instead, they released swarms of smaller creatures that attached to ships and began dissolving through armor with acid secretions. Doyen watched from the command deck as the battle unfolded. The Allied fleet was spread across 3 defensive positions, creating a triangle formation that allowed for overlapping fire. It was a human tactical suggestion, based on ancient naval warfare strategies from Earth's oceans. The Velkari had adapted it for space combat. First contact in 30 seconds, Commander Velrix announced. His forearms moved across control panels with practiced efficiency. All ships commence firing Pattern Alpha. The space between the fleets lit up with energy weapons. Plasma bolts, particle beams, and kinetic projectiles streaked through the void. Many hit their targets, burning through Zolnath armor and destroying individual creatures. But for every one that fell, 2 more took its place. They're not slowing down, Yunahan said. The xenobiologist had been brought to the command deck to help analyze Zolnath behavior in real time. They're accepting casualties and pushing forward. The hive mind values the collective over individuals. Then we need to disrupt the collective, Doyen said. He activated the communication channel to Sora Kang's ship, where the frequency weapon was installed. Sora, are you ready? As ready as we'll ever be, Sora's voice came through, tense but determined. This is completely theoretical. It might not work. It might blow up my ship, but we're going to try anyway. That's the most human thing I've ever heard, Doyen said with a slight smile. Fire when ready. The weapon activated. It wasn't visible to the naked eye, but the sensors showed a wave of disruption spreading through space, targeting the frequencies the Zolnath used to communicate with each other. For 3 long seconds, nothing happened. Then the swarm's formation broke. Individual Zolnath creatures began moving erratically, no longer coordinated with their neighbors. Some collided with each other. Others spun in confusion, their bioluminescent patterns flickering randomly. The perfect unity of the hive mind was shattered. It's working, Velrix shouted, an unusual display of emotion for the stoic commander. All ships concentrate fire on the disrupted sections. The Allied fleet pressed the advantage. Velkari warships targeted the confused Zolnath with devastating precision. Crash artillery hammered them with explosive shells. Lumina sensor nets identified weak points in their armor. Human-designed drones swarmed around the larger creatures, using guerrilla tactics to destroy them from multiple angles simultaneously. But the Zolnath were learning. After 10 minutes, the hive mind adapted. The creatures began using shorter-range communication frequencies that Sora's weapon couldn't disrupt. They reformed their coordination, though not as perfectly as before. The battle became a grinding stalemate, with both sides taking heavy casualties. We need something else, Doyen said, studying the tactical display. Something they can't adapt to. Empress Talvara stood beside him, her red eyes fixed on the battle. What do humans do when conventional tactics fail? Doyen thought about human history, about the countless wars where weaker forces had defeated stronger ones through unconventional thinking. We change the rules. We make the enemy fight on our terms instead of theirs. An idea began forming in his mind. It was desperate and risky, but desperation had always been humanity's greatest strength. The Zolnath move as a collective, Doyen said slowly. They value the survival of the hive over individual creatures. That's their strength, but it's also a weakness. Explain, Talvara commanded. What if we give them a target they can't ignore? Something so valuable to the collective that they'd sacrifice everything to get it? Doyen pulled up a map of the defensive formation. What if we make them think they can win quickly by concentrating all their forces on one point? Velrix understood immediately. A trap. We create a false weakness in our line. Let them concentrate there, then collapse on them from all sides. But what would make them take the bait? Yuna asked. They're not stupid. They won't fall for an obvious trap. Doyen looked at Empress Talvara. They will if the bait is important enough. If it's the fleet's command ship. Your flagship. The command deck fell silent. What Doyen was suggesting was essentially suicide. Using the Empress's flagship as bait meant putting her directly in the path of the swarm's main force. Talvara's mandibles clicked together, and what Doyen had learned was her version of a smile. You think like a Velkari warrior, willing to risk everything for victory. I think like a human, Doyen corrected, willing to do whatever it takes to protect my people. You've been protecting us. Now let us protect you. The plan came together quickly. The flagship would move to a position that appeared to be vulnerable, as if trying to retreat from the battle. The Zolnath, sensing an opportunity to decapitate the Allied command structure, would concentrate their forces for an overwhelming attack. Once they were committed, the rest of the fleet would close in from all sides, trapping the swarm in a kill zone. It was a tactic humans had used in countless wars, the feigned retreat, the tactical withdrawal that lures the enemy into a trap. The Mongols had used it, the Romans had used it. Now, for the first time, it would be used in space warfare. The flagship began its false retreat. As predicted, the Zolnath took the bait. Thousands of creatures broke off from the main swarm and pursued Talvara's ship, moving with terrifying speed. Doyen stood beside the Empress, watching the approaching wave of death. If this doesn't work, it will work, Talvara interrupted. Because you thought of it. And human thinking has never failed me. The Zolnath closed in. They were so close now that Doyen could see individual details on their organic armor, could see the acid dripping from their weapon clusters. The flagship's shields were taking heavy damage. Alert klaxons wailed throughout the ship. Now, Talvara commanded. The Allied fleet emerged from hiding positions on all sides. Velkari warships, Kresh artillery platforms, Predexi cruisers, human carriers launching clouds of drones. They converged on the Zolnath concentration like a closing fist. The swarm tried to scatter, but they were too committed. They had sacrificed their formation for the chance to kill the Empress, and now they were paying the price. The Allied forces tore into them with everything they had, but the Zolnath weren't finished. Even trapped, even dying, they were dangerous. A group of creatures broke through the defensive screen and attached themselves to the flagship's hull. Acid began eating through the armor. Hull breach in Section 7, Velrix reported. They're coming inside. Talvara drew her weapons. Then we meet them directly. Doyen wanted to argue, wanted to say that the Empress was too valuable to risk in close combat. But he knew it wouldn't matter. Talvara was a warrior before she was a ruler. She would not hide while her ship was boarded. They moved through the corridors toward Section 7, accompanied by Velkari elite guards. The sounds of combat echoed through the ship. Weapons fire, screams, the horrific clicking noises the Zolnath made. When they reached the breach, they found chaos. Zolnath creatures had torn through 3 defensive positions and were pushing toward the ship's core. They moved with animal fury, no longer coordinated by the hive mind but driven by instinct to destroy. Doyen had never been in direct combat before. He was a diplomat, not a soldier. But when a Zolnath creature came at him, he raised the plasma pistol he'd been given and fired. The shot took the creature in what passed for its head. It fell, twitching, and Doyen felt his hands shaking. Beside him, Talvara fought with terrible grace. Her forearms moved in patterns too fast to follow, her weapons cutting through Zolnath armor like paper. She was beautiful and terrifying, a reminder that the Velkari had conquered 12 solar systems for good reasons. The battle in the corridor lasted less than 5 minutes, but it felt like hours. When it was over, Doyen stood among the bodies of dead Zolnath, breathing hard, covered in alien blood that burned his skin. A Zolnath creature that they'd missed suddenly lunged from a side passage. It was wounded, dying, but it had enough strength for one last attack. It aimed for Talvara, its acid-dripping claws extended. Doyen didn't think. He just moved. He threw himself between the creature and the Empress. The claws meant for her tore into his side instead. Pain exploded through his body, white-hot and all-consuming. He fell, feeling the acid eating through his flesh. Talvara killed the creature with a single strike. Then she was kneeling beside Doyen, her red eyes wide with something that might have been fear. "You fool," she said. "You fragile, foolish human." Doyen tried to speak but couldn't. The pain was too much. His vision was fading. The last thing he heard before losing consciousness was Talvara shouting for medical assistance, her voice carrying an emotion he'd never heard from her before: panic. Doyen woke 3 days later in the medical bay. His side was wrapped in bandages and something was humming inside his body. Probably Velkari medical technology keeping him alive. Yuna was sitting beside his bed and she smiled when she saw his eyes open. "You're awake." "Good. The Empress has been driving the medical staff crazy asking about your condition every hour."